Well, Dave's been a pearler. He was a pearler till he
One of the reasons why I wanted to take up this commission is, my experiences of Australia are in the big metropolitan cities of Sydney and Melbourne. So I hadn't really seen sort of the outback and smaller towns, and that's one thing that I'm absolutely excited about discovering, and indeed has proved to be very interesting. So that aspect really for me was the most intriguing. I'm a nosy person by, and that's why I'm a photographer. So I like to look around places, and it sort of whetted my appetite to have more experience of the Australian outback. I think it's a fascinating place.
That's like Richie last year, Meatloaf this year, it's starting to resemble a bit of an Andy Deegan type.
Well, I've got to say, I'm a fan of the big mate, but he's had a couple of cut-in the rest of the last year. He's done a bit of a drive because of the city in this third quarter.
Come on, let's go!
It's difficult to highlight particular moments, but I think each town brought probably a highlight, like with Fremantle, the polars and the whole experience of the swimming, the camaraderie there, the rituals of it, right down to things like having the port afterwards, or even the jam and toast. And then in Broome, I think just the whole experience of going to the beach and seeing these sort of Australian cliches played out as the people come down with their tinnies at sunset onto Cable Beach, where you have this range of Australia in front of you, of all social classes, all types, all on the beach, all very friendly. And then here in Port Hedland, just the whole surreal nature of the town and how it's so vibrant because, of course, it's such an economic powerhouse for the mining industry in Australia, which is so crucial to Australia's economy. But this, of course, is not so much a mining town, but a place where the iron ore, the salt, the copper, whatever it is exported. And that whole procedure and the scale of the port is quite amazing. And then you get a smaller thing right down to going mud crabbing, yesterday with Tubbs and Tracy, and actually having and enjoying that being cooked later in the day. So sometimes it's the bigger picture that is so fascinating, and sometimes, and is often the case, it's the smaller detail that you remember. And that's my job as a photographer, is to turn those details into images that hopefully can communicate to another audience.
Very good.
Sorry. Oops. Okay, now the key is not to smile, right?
Not to smile.
Yes, because everyone does you smiling, and it's just... Okay, so just turn around and look at me. Okay, and maybe just move slightly. Just gonna move the chair. Yeah. No, a little bit this way. Keep going. That's it. Okay, and then move along a bit.
Yep.
That's it.
And I'm looking down the...
You're looking straight at me.
Right.
No smiles.
No, sorry. He knows that now.
Well, I think if you do a portrait, it should be a serious thing. It should be a serious sort of confrontation, if you like. And I want to show people with lots of dignity. I'm showing people who are usually in charge of something or doing a job, and we assume there's a certain amount of pride involved in this, and I want to show that. And I don't want my pictures to look like all the other Facebook pictures, which the world is contaminated with, where everyone's smiling and laughing. They have a role to play within that social networking, but as a serious photographer, I think a serious pose is absolutely crucial.
That's it. That's great. We'll get you a copy of that.
Well, Magnum's always had this sort of tension or friction between art and journalism. It was started by Cartier-Bresson and Robert Capa, and it's an essential part of our being, if you like. this continues now, but of course the overlaps between these things as then and now are quite substantial as well. So although there's a big component of art photographers in Magnum, we're all still interested in documenting the world, and therefore, if you like, we have a common goal with the photojournalists who's also are interested in documenting the world. They tend to go towards the hotspots where the action is. We tend to go for the softer news, to just normal life. And I think having these two things running side by side is absolutely crucial to our success. And I think it would be a very sad day if one particular genre took over the other. In terms of what's happening to photojournalism, I mean, we all know the magazines are in decline, so therefore the traditional avenues to have this work used and published are diminishing. So more and more people are relying on books. So the whole idea of the Cultural Commission is a relatively new thing. And I think that's one thing that Magnum photographers are quite good at, because not only can you take an individual, but we can do group projects, and we often have, where a range of photographers and a range of palettes and ideas and attitudes can be encompassed into one project. So I think in that sense, Magnum's in a good position because the days of the traditional photojournalism agency are long gone, because their reliance on magazines was too high, and now the cultural market is really what's taken over. It's difficult to pinpoint the absolute main influences, because these change and shift during my career. But I think early on I was taken with first the School of Photography from America, like Robert Frank, Winogrand and Friedlander, and then more latterly, and then within the UK, people like Tony Ray Jones, who was always a big influence on me, and Chris Killip. And then more recently, I think I've taken on board some of the ideas from the Becher School, the typology, and people like Eggleston, Stephen Shaw, the sort of hugely influential colorists. So it's difficult for me to isolate it down to one or two people, because it's been a string of influences over a career of photography. I don't think myself as an artist. I'm very proud to be a photographer. I like being a photographer, and my role, I guess, is to tell the world about some of the things that I've discovered, some of the things that I've interpreted, because it is entirely subjective. And I'm very privileged insofar that I've managed to get a platform to find an audience, different audiences for different projects. But what's interesting is that now I'm much more thinking about the benefits and what can be achieved through local community photography. So the irony is that as I've become more established, I'm now thinking about becoming more local. So there's nothing better than, say, the project that I'm working on in the Black Country, which has been somewhat echoed here in the likes of, say, Port Hedland, where there is definitely an element where these pictures can be shown back again. The same with Fremantle. I very much am in favour of showing the photos back to the community where they were actually sourced. And I think this is a very strong thing that you can do with photography, because its ability to communicate in a very democratic way is one of its great virtues. So that's what I'm trying to do now. I'm trying to be more local. I'm actually trying to be a community photographer.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's great. Just a little bit long there? Yeah, just a little bit.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والضحى والليل إذا سجى ما ودعك ربك وما قلى وللآخرة خير لك من
Well, you can look back in the last 10, 20 years, and you can see influences that photographers, whether it's Nan Goldin or Andrus Gursky or Philip Lorca de Corsia, have had on a different and new generation. When you teach photography and you look at folio reviews, you can disseminate the influences, where they've taken their ideas from. they've often not yet had the chance to develop them into their own, because the most difficult thing to do is to shake off the shackles of our accumulated culture and do something new and fresh and exciting. And you have to do that by initially going through the influences of people that have sparked you off to make you excited by photography, but then you have to leave them and go beyond that. So you can see the great names of photography in the last 10, 20 years, and I could name many more, like Daido Moriyama, the Beshers. You know, there are many people who have had a big impact on our changing photographic culture. I make sure that in the preparation that the people who are organising it have got someone on the ground who's doing the production, doing the research. This is absolutely key. So the essential part of this job is to have good research in place, to know where to go, and then of course open it up also to things that you inevitably stumble across when you get here. So you have to have a program that is tight but not super tight. So it's a combination of being instinctive and intuitive when you come, but having enough things to start off with that means you get a good entry into the community. So the permissions, the access, the timetable, what's going on in terms of events should all be sorted out beforehand, and then you can be more effective and efficient as a photographer. I use Flash because I really like the clarity that it brings to a situation. It also has a sort of slightly inherent surreal nature. And when you're out here, this is a very sunny place, and the sun is out all day, and the light is very beautiful until about 10 o'clock, and then it gets nice again about after 4. So that middle part of the day has very high, dark shadows. So if you didn't have Flash, you'd miss out on a whole layer of information. But I try and balance Flash so it's not so obvious. You know, I like combining ambient light with Flash, and just if you like a little kiss of Flash in the foreground, just to lift it. And I'm constantly looking for ways, if you like, to make it look as if I'm using less Flash, but of course, this is part of my language that you build up as a photographer. Well, the Bescher and the Dusseldorf School of Academy are profoundly important in terms of the recent history of photography, because they were the people that taught the art world that photography in its own right should be taken seriously. So the big stars now of art room photography or art house photography are the Bescher students, perhaps more than anyone else. So Gursky, Struth, Ruff. I mean, the world record for a photograph, I think, has just been beaten maybe by Cindy Sherman, but up to then it was 3.3 million for a duet of Gursky pictures. But the big thing is that they have taught the art world to love photography, and we are all benefiting from that down the food chain. So although obviously my prices are nowhere near Gursky, it does give people within the art world the confidence to think that photography is indeed serious, and they can collect it with the same sort of surety and confidence that they can collect contemporary art. And this is a huge thing, and we all benefit. Serious photography has as strong a role to play now as ever before, because it can connect with real communities, real ideas. It's a huge platform, and it's never been more popular or more democratic or more open to so many people. So photography is at its, if you like, absolute peak. So it's as relevant now, if not more so than ever before. I think it's very important to have some kind of vision. It's very difficult to describe your own vision because, in a sense, that's what you're articulating. That's why you take photographs rather than new words. But mine, I guess, is complicated so far. It's about the leisure activities of the world. Initially started in the UK, but now it's become more global. But then you take certain slants and ideas, and they all fit into the sort of bigger jigsaw of the work that you try to produce in some kind of career. So it's difficult for me to really precisely describe what my actual vision is. I leave that, if you like, to other people. You know how photographers always say just one more, and they always lie. Yeah.